Welcome to my first mock draft. This draft is after the combine, but before the start of free agency. Please play along and post your picks in the comments section below. No trades in this mock draft except for pick number 1. I firmly believe when the draft starts, it will be the Washington Commanders with the first pick in the 2024 draft. This works for both teams. I firmly believe the Bears fired the offensive coordinator in hopes to find a better fit for Justin Fields' talents, and after hiring Kingsbury, who was at USC last season, the Commanders will pay whatever price is necessary to get the first pick in the draft. And with the first pick in the draft, the Washington Commanders will select Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC. You have a new ownership group in Washington. Williams is from the DC area. Your new offensive coordinator coached him in college. In my opinion, it's a complete no-brainer for Washington to go from 2 to 1. While I won't guess at the draft compensation, it is safe to say the Commanders will definitely overpay to move up from 2 to 1 in this draft. With now the second pick in the draft, Chicago could trade down again, but since they pick again at 9, is my guess the Bears stay put and get Fields some help by drafting Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver out of Ohio State. I don't feel like I have to explain this in too much detail. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not only universally considered the highest rated receiver and player in the draft, he complements DJ Moore perfectly. If Fields can't make it work with these two receivers, part of the draft compensation to trade up to pick number 1 will include 2025 draft capital that the Bears can use to draft a quarterback next year with. Now, what does New England do with pick number 3? In my opinion, New England is definitely going quarterback. It's just a question of which one, Jaden Daniels or Drake May. Daniels has better tape and is more consistent. May is bigger and has more upside. In my opinion, May's game translates better towards the pro game, and his size is a definite plus. New England at 3, I have taken Drake May, quarterback out of North Carolina. Arizona has 7 picks in the first 103 picks in the NFL draft, including pick number 27 in round 1, so it makes it highly unlikely that Arizona will trade down from pick number 4, but not impossible. Arizona could entertain offers to trade, but I firmly believe Arizona just takes the best player available, and it's a position of need. Arizona at 4 takes my favorite player in the draft, Rome Odunze, wide receiver out of Washington. In a recent scientific study, it has been proven aliens anal probe non-subscribers to DanTalksFootball over 769% more than subscribers. Stay safe from alien anal probes during draft season and hit that subscribe button. Now back to the draft. The Chargers here at 5 is interesting because I can see the Chargers doing multiple things. First, the Chargers could trade down, and I think that's highly likely. As I am making this video, the Chargers are roughly $21 million over the cap and will need to make cuts. More than likely, Khalil Mack and or Joey Bosa will not be on the Chargers for 2024. Dallas Turner would be a great replacement and could be the pick here at number 5. However, I'm going to look at the other side of the ball, and I got the Chargers taking Joe Alt, tackle out of Notre Dame. The Giants are next up at 6, and yes, I will keep saying it because I firmly believe there's going to be some trades in the top 10 of this draft. The Giants are a team that could definitely trade down. The Giants could also take Jaden Daniels if he is available, because I'm not sure Daniel Jones is really the guy, but you did sign him to a big contract last offseason, so this year give him some help. At 6, I got the Giants taking Malik Neighbors, wide receiver out of LSU. The Titans at 7, again, yes, could trade down. Tennessee doesn't have a 3rd round pick, and offensively this team is switching directions, so they do need players, so a trade down makes a lot of sense. Tennessee also needs help at wide receiver, and in this mock draft, 3 receivers are already off the board, and in my opinion, Bowers is too high for the Titans to pick here at 7. With the way that this mock draft is going, the Titans would trade down, but no trades are allowed here, so I got the Titans taking the first defensive player off the board. Dallas Turner out of Alabama is the pick here at 7. Atlanta at 8 is next, and this one is easy. Now keep in mind, when I'm making this video, free agency hasn't started, and if Kirk Cousins signs with Atlanta, and it is very possible he will sign with Falcons. This pick will change. For now, if Atlanta doesn't sign a quarterback and Jaden Daniels is available at 8, this is a no-brainer. Atlanta at 8 takes Jaden Daniels, quarterback out of LSU. Chicago is back again, picking at 9. In this scenario, I can easily see Chicago trading down with J.J. McCarthy still available. But again, no trades in this mock draft. But if McCarthy is available at 9, I would expect Chicago to get some trade offers and possibly trade down. But picking at 9, I got the Bears taking Latu, defensive end out of UCLA. The Jets at 10, I see them taking an offensive tackle and possibly even trading up if they want Joe Alt bad enough. I'm not sure who the Jets have rated highest, but I believe they're going to take Olu Fashanu, tackle out of Penn State. Next is Minnesota at 11, and if they do not re-sign Cousins, I fully expect the Vikings to be a candidate to trade up in this draft to draft a quarterback. Now, if they do sign Cousins, I expect the Vikings use the 11th pick in the draft to try to bolster the defense, but without Cousins, the Vikings will try for a quarterback, and in this mock draft, it works perfectly. With the 11th pick in the draft, the Minnesota Vikings select J.J. McCarthy, quarterback out of Michigan. Denver at 12 is where my draft gets interesting. Now, Denver needs a quarterback, and it wouldn't surprise me if they try to get one in free agency, and it wouldn't surprise me if Denver tries to trade up, but in this mock draft, neither scenario is possible, so I'm throwing a curveball here. With the 12th pick in the draft, the Denver Broncos select Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of Washington. Now, I'm going to defend this pick a little bit. If Penix didn't have the medical issues and you just saw him play the last 2 years at Washington, he's probably the same caliber player as Caleb Williams, maybe even higher. Now, he was cleared medically at the combine, and he's exactly what Sean Payton wants at quarterback. Penix plays best within the pocket, and his arm talent is crazy good. It is possible Denver could wait till round 2 or trades down and tries to get Penix later in the first round, but if they like Penix like I think they do, I think that Denver pulls the trigger at 12. With the 13th pick in the draft, the Las Vegas Raiders are up, and I fully expect the Raiders to address quarterback in the draft or in free agency, but with 5 quarterbacks off the board in this mock draft, I expect the Raiders to address another concern, and it's either the offensive line or the defensive line here at 13. Jared Verse makes a lot of sense here. You put him opposite Max Crosby, and it makes a lot of sense. It almost was the pick, but I'm going offensive line here, and with the 13th pick in the draft, the Raiders select Talise Fuaga, tackle out of Oregon State. I went back and forth at 14 here for the Saints because Jared Verse makes a lot of sense. The Saints went from having 48 sacks in 2022 to 34 last year, so if the Saints draft Jared Verse at 14, I'm not mad at it, and it makes a lot of sense. However, you're bringing in Clint Kubiak as your new offensive coordinator from San Francisco, and I think you want to bring in a more physical running type of offense, and your offensive line needs help. That's where I have the Saints going here. So with the 14th pick in the 2024 draft, I got the Saints taking J.C. Latham, tackle out of Alabama. Next up is the Colts at 15, and I really struggled with this selection. I really want to pick Amarius Mims, the massive tackle out of Georgia here. He is raw, but he has so much upside, and I firmly believe the Colts' biggest goal is protecting Anthony Richardson, but I'm going with someone who will have more of a day one impact. Kenny Moore is a free agent, and while I believe the Colts will try and re-sign him, and you still got Juju Brents, who was a Colts second round pick in last year's draft, I still like the Colts to take a corner here. With the 15th pick in the draft, I have Indy selecting Quinion Mitchell, cornerback out of Toledo. Seattle's a team you never know what they're going to do in the draft, but I expect them to try and trade down, especially without a second round pick due to Leonard Williams trade. But even if they re-sign Williams, defensive line makes a lot of sense here, and I almost mock that. But when I look at McDonald and what he did in Baltimore, is they built the defense around 2 stud inside linebackers, and your top 3 linebackers are all hitting free agency. Taking an inside linebacker at 16 is very high, but Seattle marches to the beat of their own drum here, and this player fits in need. So with the 16th pick in the draft, I have Seattle selecting Peyton Wilson, linebacker out of NC State. Jacksonville is next. next, and to me this is really easy. You're bringing in a whole new defensive staff and system, and your secondary needs a lot of help. So this pick's the combination of best player available and position of need. Jacksonville at 17 will take Teron Arnold, defensive back out of Alabama. And just to be clear, I expect Arnold to play corner, but he did start his career off at Alabama at safety. In my opinion, you draft Arnold and just get him on the field, and whatever position he can help out the most, he'll play that position. Cincinnati at 18 could easily go Brock Bowers here, and I wouldn't fault the Bengals if they take the Georgia tight end here, but I think Cincinnati will go offensive line instead. You're losing your starting right tackle to free agency, and no matter which offensive lineman you're picking here at 18, you're getting excellent value, and protecting Burrow should be priority number one. So here at 18, I got the Bengals taking Amarius Mims, tackle out of Georgia. The way this mock draft is going, I fully expect the Rams to try and trade up and acquire Brock Bowers. However, in this draft, he falls all the way to 19. Tyler Higbee was injured in the playoff loss against the Lions and may not be ready to start day one in the 2024 season. So with the 19th pick in the draft, the Los Angeles Rams select Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. Pittsburgh's next at 20, and I fully expect a trade down from here. You have some edge rushers in this mock draft in Jared Verse and Chop Robinson that really should already be off the board, and you have Houston, Tampa, Arizona, and Detroit that are all interested in drafting a pass rusher. So I really should mock another trade here, but I'm not going to. Pittsburgh will get their guy at number 20. With the 20th pick in the draft, Pittsburgh will select Jackson Powers Johnson, center out of Oregon. Next up is Miami, and it's my opinion the Dolphins' number one priority is protecting Tua, and the Dolphins have their tackles locked up, but they don't have a pick in rounds 3 or 4, so a trade down makes sense to bolster the offensive line in the later rounds. But as you know, no trades in this mock, and there is a glaring hole with the release of Xavier Howard. So with the 21st pick in the draft, Miami selects Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson. Welcome to the track team, Nate. Philly at 22, I really want to go corner, and Cooper DeJean is a guy, a new defensive coordinator Vic Fangio would absolutely love, but Philly likes drafting guys for the future and building up front early in the draft, and I think they continue both of these trends. So with pick 22 in the NFL draft, the Eagles select offensive lineman Troy Fautanu out of Washington. Now, most people list Fautanu as a tackle, but I think he could play inside, and don't be surprised if he starts day one at guard and then kicks outside to either tackle position. Lane Johnson will be 34 in May, and Matelia is only signed till 2025. He could be a free agent and cap casualty. So Fautanu makes sense here for the Eagles at 22. Next up is Houston at 23, and this is kind of a no-brainer if you can't sign Jonathan Greenyard, but if you sign Greenyard, then wide receiver could be the selection here. Brian Thomas or Donde Mitchell would really help out CJ Stroud, but I really like staying on defense if I'm the Texans here, specifically the defensive line. So the 23rd pick in the draft, I got Jared Verse, defensive end out of Florida State. Dallas at 24 is always interesting, and wide receiver is always a possibility. Both Brian Thomas and Donde Mitchell would be a lot of fun here for the Dallas Cowboys, but Dallas is losing Tyron Smith in free agency, and Dallas does like to draft offensive linemen in round 1, so let's not buck the trend. With the 24th pick in the draft, the Dallas Cowboys select Tyler Guyton, tackle out of Oklahoma. Green Bay at 25 is another candidate to trade down, and I can see several teams interested in moving up for Chop Robinson, who is still on the board, but with the Packers drafting Lucas Van Ness last year, I don't see them drafting Robinson, but the value is there, so it could happen. I do see Green Bay drafting defense to help new defensive coordinator Jeff Hadley, who started his coaching career as a defensive backs coach, and that's where I have the pack going. With the 25th pick in the draft, I have Green Bay selecting Cooper DeJean, defensive back out of Iowa. Now note, I do think DeJean will play corner, but he did play some safety at Iowa, and he might be used all over the secondary. We'll have to see what Green Bay does. Next up is Tampa Bay at 26, and as I am making this video, it was announced that Baker Mayfield signed a 3-year deal, so Bo Nix is unlikely here. In my opinion, this situation is almost perfect for the Bucs because they get a position of need here at 26 and probably the highest rated player on the board. With the 26th pick in the draft, Tampa Bay will select Chop Robinson, Robinson, outside linebacker out of Penn State. We come back to Arizona at 27, and the Cardinals, with all the draft capital they have, I can see them easily trading up. In fact, I think it's a little surprising if the Cardinals stay pat here at 27. Now, after getting your receiver at number 4, I expect the rest of the Cardinals picks, or the majority of them, to be used on fixing the defense. In my opinion, who the Cardinals have as their highest rated player will be the pick here at 27. But again, I want to emphasize it's highly unlikely that the Cardinals will stay here once the draft starts. But with the 27th pick in the draft, I have Arizona taking Byron Murphy, defensive tackle out of Texas. Buffalo at 28 is a tough one. They lost a lot in cap casualties, and they don't have a third-round pick this year, so I'm expecting a trade down. But if you can't trade down, what do you do if you're the Bills? I see them looking at defense. You got either Kool-Aid McCaffrey or Jazon Newton, and both these players make a lot of sense, but I'm looking at a player who I simply have rated higher. In fact, I'm not sure how this player slid so far down in this draft, and it's my own mock draft. With the 28th pick in the draft, Buffalo selects Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver out of LSU. Next up is the Lions at 29, and this is a team I could see trading up or down in this draft. The Lions have been entertaining the last couple of years in the draft by trading up and making big time splashes, and they could do the same thing this year. But at 29, I've been mocking Graham Bartram, the offensive lineman out of Duke. Now, he played left tackle at Duke, but I see him playing either guard or center, and the Lions could use Barton as a plug-and-play player because they do have some free agents on the offensive line. But when I look at the Lions, I don't question the offense, I question the defense, and if you stay put at 29, I think you take the best defensive player available. So with the 29th pick in the draft, Detroit selects Jazon Newton, defensive tackle out of Illinois. Baltimore is up next, and they are always a candidate to trade down. Now, this year's a little different. They have a ton of free agents, so if they stay at 30, it's probably going to be best player available. Now, you could go offensive line. Jordan Morgan out of Arizona is solid, but I could see Baltimore grabbing him in the 40s or even the 50s maybe. Now, it's no secret Baltimore loves those Alabama players, so why not another? With the 30th pick in the draft, Baltimore selects Kool-Aid McKinstry, corner out of Alabama. Next up is the San Francisco 49ers, and you might have detected a trend in my draft. When a team hires a new coordinator, I usually try to give that coordinator the selection in round 1. If a team needs help on defense, hires a new defensive coordinator, it makes sense to draft a defensive player with your first pick, right? Well, I firmly believe San Francisco did make an error in firing Steve Wilks after losing the Super Bowl, and I want to put a defensive player here, and you have a couple corners that make sense. You could go Braylon Trice, the defensive end out of Washington, Braden Fisk, who after the 4.78 time at the Combine should go in round 1. However, one guy really sticks out, but he plays on offense. With the 31st pick in the draft, San Francisco selects a Donde Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas. Save the best for last again, as my Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs are now on the clock. Now, the Chiefs could trade up in this draft for a left tackle. That's definitely a possibility. And Jordan Morgan at 32, while I'm not ruling that out, is also a possibility, but I'm going in another direction. Almost every single mock draft has the Chiefs taking a wide receiver in round 1. And while I firmly believe the Chiefs will draft a receiver, it won't be in the first round. There's plenty of receivers to take in rounds 2 or 3. I firmly believe the Chiefs will go defense in the first round. Now, the Chiefs tag L'Jarius Sneed, and there's been talks about trading him, and if he is traded, I would look at Enos Rakeshaw out of Missouri. This is a guy that fits in perfectly with what Kansas City wants to do, and I do like the Chiefs taking the Missouri player, but someone else. With the 32nd pick in the draft, I have the Chiefs selecting defensive lineman Darius Robinson out of Missouri. I hope you enjoyed the draft, but what makes it great is if you tell me what you think. Who will your team take? Put all 32 picks down if you want. This is simply my opinion, but I really want to hear from you. Don't forget, I go live every Tuesday and Friday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific time. Join my show live and tell me what you think. Can't wait to read your comments in the section. Enjoy the video. Have a great day.